Hi, everybody. I'm Raj De Datta. I'm CEO and co-founder of Bloomreach, and I'm really excited to have Shawn here with me from Canadian Tire. Shawn, welcome to this video.
Thank you, Raj. It's really good to be part of this discussion with you today.
Well, it's great to talk to you, and it's a real pleasure to talk to somebody who one has been in the industry a while now, working with some of the best brands around, and I know driving so much for Canadian Tire, and actually partnering with both SAP and with Bloomreach through that process. So let me just dive in here, Shawn, and start by asking you, what are the key kind of digital business challenges that you have been focused on solving, maybe pre-COVID, and then after that, more recently, post-COVID?
So Canadian Tire is a company that's almost 100 years old. So a very tried and true retailer. And so I came into the Canadian Tire family about 20 months ago. And one of the major challenges was really just going through a transformation around digital. And the challenges really were getting a company that was used to doing big mega projects, maybe 3 or 4 big ones a year, to start having them think about going more continuous delivery, focusing on data-driven decisions and continuous learning as well. And so we were starting down that path, and then all of a sudden COVID hit.
Yeah.
And the good thing for Canadian Tire, not necessarily for the world at large, but the good thing for Canadian Tire is it really forced our transformation to go faster.
Yeah.
There was a great appreciation amongst our leadership that we really needed to make decisions quickly. We needed to try things, fail quickly, learn, and make the modifications. So exactly the transformation that I was trying to bring to the table, just the timeline accelerated. And a great example is, the need that the customers had to be safe, but also to get the necessities that they needed to have. And so we had to introduce curbside. Normally, that would be a project that would take, in the old days, maybe 12 months, maybe 16 months by the time you went through all the approvals and talked to all the stakeholders. We were able to actually get it done in 2 weeks. That's with awesome. Our 500 independent franchisees or dealers. And so if you can imagine that, it's because our model at Canadian Tire is a little bit different, because we have a dealer model or a franchisee model, that we had to get 500 independent owners all on the same page and get all the collateral material out to them and do the technology integration.
Wow.
And we did that within 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I guess
exciting.
It shows what's possible when there's urgency. And so I'm sure you showed a lot of people within the organization the speed at which you could operate to make stuff happen. And that's awesome. 2 weeks to curbside. And so let's maybe step back a little bit. I think when we met originally, you were early to Canadian Tire, and you'd moved back home, is what I remember. You're Canadian originally, if I remember that right. And we were talking about findability as a core problem that we wanted to try to solve, and this was now going back to even prior to COVID. Just interested in kind of the business challenge that led you to sort of work with Bloomreach, and how Bloomreach played a role in that transformation and in those business challenges.
No, great question. What I was really focusing in on when I came on board about 20 months ago was there are some core, I would say, capabilities, customer experiences that we really needed to win at in order to be successful. And one of those was around search and navigation, which is really around discoverability and findability. Mm-hmm. At Canadian Tire, we have a series of companies. We have our flagship Canadian Tire, and then we have a series of other companies like Sport Chek, Marks, Atmosphere, and each of them have unique catalogs and different product types. And what we needed to do was take what we had built originally, which was a homegrown solution, and figure out how to actually increase, as I say, the findability of products for customers. And one of the challenges that we had in our homegrown system was it was taking a very long time to build out the necessary components. I would call it really, it was phase one of a very dumb search engine.
Yeah.
All it really looked at was the individual keywords that were typed in by the customer and matched them against product title.
Yeah.
Whether the words themselves were important or not.
Right.
And so we had very complex products within our site, and we had some basic products. Like one example of a typical keyword search that we have is light helmet and helmet light.
Yeah.
Now people would say, well, what does it matter that the order of the words are different? Well, context matters to humans, but it also matters to the search engine.
Yeah.
The helmet light is actually something that customers would use for camping or caving, right? That they would be going into dark caves and that, and it's something you put onto your forehead. Whereas a light helmet is really a helmet that I want to wear that's not very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And we as humans really know the difference between the two.
Right.
Search engines themselves, especially the internal one we built, was not that smart, as I call it a dumb engine. And so when we actually were able to get the Bloomreach search engine on, we saw a world of difference between those two. When we looked at helmet lights, we actually saw all the camping lights and the caving lights, and the light helmets we saw for motorcyclists and for bicyclists.
Yeah.
And we got exactly what a human would expect. But in our old engine, we ended up with just a hodgepodge of different helmets and lights together.
Yeah.
Because if the product had the word light in it, or if the product had the word helmet in it, we showed it up in our old engine. And depending on how many times the product sold, we'd see those things rise to the top. And so what we ended up seeing was some weird results. And it didn't make any sense for our customers. So what was exciting was when we moved over to the Bloomreach solution, we saw logical, reasonable results that really drove significant improvements. And we saw across the board 20% at least lifts in all of the banners that we put the Bloomreach search engine in. So we were very pleased with that result.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story, Shawn. And look, I think while we look back at those kinds of search engines, the text-based search engines that you were referring to as ancient, in truth, it prevails across much of the industry that, you know, traditional search engines have done text matches in a way that doesn't consider word order or intent or semantics in figuring out what the user actually intends. And once you figure out how to extract semantic meaning from the query and associate that with the product catalog, and then marry in performance data and user behavior data, you have the opportunity to build an interesting experience. How important a problem, you know, is search for your business? So, as I remember, you know, this was sort of used by dealers, maybe used by consumers directly. You've got lots of different constituents. You know, when you think about the digital journey, how important is search?
So for us, it's a critical starting point. What we found with our old search engine, though, is customers didn't rely on it. Mm-hmm. And so when I first arrived at Canadian Tire, the search utilization versus people browsing and navigating through the hyperlink farms was disproportionate. Yep. We were seeing probably 8 to 12 to 15, maybe 20% of our customers doing search.
Yeah.
And then the rest, they were just meandering through the text links.
Yeah.
And again, you know, my days at Amazon and my days at Home Depot and Dell and Hewlett Packard and other key e-tailers, that was not the pattern that I had seen before. Yeah. Generally, it's 50 to 60% of customers that will actually do text search or voice search, and then the balance will be meandering through link farms. Mm-hmm. And so what we've seen over time now is the numbers rising significantly. We've seen 3 to 4-fold increases in the volume of searches taking place now. And as you said, it's not only our end customers that are doing searching, but we have our associates in the stores that are also using it, because it's really the product information that we have on each of our individual products helps them to sell and explain the usage much better to customers. A great example is leveraging the ratings and reviews, because sometimes the manufacturers or the product information doesn't talk about all the specific uses. A great example is some of the insecticide products and that you're using for your gardens. One of the typical questions that comes in is this going to harm my dog or my cat?
Right.
And a lot of the time, the manufacturers don't bother to put that information in. Yeah. But users will speak to that and put that information in, so that there's that extra user-generated content that the associates in the stores can leverage in that and talk about it. Or they can talk about, this garden hose is not very flexible. It actually gets brittle easily and tangles into a mess. So yeah. I'm going to not recommend this one to you, but I'm going to recommend the one beside it, because it is much more pliable. So those are things that really help our store associates and help our customers that make the right decisions. And finding the product to start with through search is a great idea.
That makes sense. And what you describe in terms of, you know, getting to 50 or 60% for a catalog as large as yours is consistent with what we see, you know, of comparable businesses. And you raised the really interesting point, which is that if you build the right search engine, you both should get the revenue impact immediately of conversion lift and revenue lift, but you should also see usage growth, which then creates a compounding effect where, you know, you just get better coverage, you drive people into the funnel much more deeply, and by the time they're either interacting with a store associate or deciding what to buy, they're further down the funnel, and it's more likely that they buy the product. So that totally resonates.
Yeah, completely agree. You know, as Jeff Bezos would say, in that the flywheel effect. And that was one of the things I took on from my early days when I was there in the 90s, when the stock price at Amazon was $20. Right. Was the concept of flywheel and scale. And so that's one of the guiding principles that I continue to use as we build out our digital strategy here.
Makes sense. Well, I'd love your take on kind of what you think happens post-COVID. So I think you've mentioned this. We've all seen just massive acceleration, you know, post-COVID. Some numbers, 50% up kind of year over year in sales. We're seeing in Bloomreach's own data, in certain cases, API calls up 80+% across the 25% of commerce brands that we power year over year. So we're seeing, you know, very significant kind of trends. What do you think? What do you think happens? What are we teaching customers about how they will shop in the future based on their experience of the last 6 months?
It's a great question. Well, let me share a little bit of stats with you. This is based on our earnings call for Q2 just a little while ago.
Yeah.
We saw you know, growth in e-commerce, sales growth in the fourth quarter about 400%. Quarter over quarter, led by a 500% quarter Q2 to Q2 within Canadian Tire brand itself. Mm-hmm. And awesome. Overall revenue just for the quarter for online of over 600 million.
Wow.
And that actually was more than what we did all of last year.
Yeah.
And so we absolutely did see Canadians and Canadian consumers in that stand up, line up, and tell us exactly what they needed, and what they really wanted was convenience. They wanted ease, but they also wanted safety, and they wanted to be able to practice the physical distancing. Yeah. And so we don't see this going away. We're not of the belief that COVID is something that within 6 months, once we get a vaccine, everything will disappear.
Right.
We see this as patterns have changed fundamentally, and we're actually taking our cue from our customers. So you say what we're going to be doing going forward is more of the same and doubling down. So we're going to be looking at our in-store experiences and how we can give customers options. We really, today more than ever, we have to be there when they want us, how they want us, and be able to deliver on the timely commitments that they are expecting of us. And so we're going to continue to build out more of that sort of experience in the stores. So we're adding lockers, and that we've had lockers in a few stores now. We're going to now actually roll them out faster because that will help with the physical distancing. In addition to curbside, we're actually we'll be introducing SMS text messaging. We'll be actually unlocking a lot of in-store experiences through our digital app that we have for Canadian Tire. So being able to send notifications when you approach the store, giving you location of where your product will be for pickup, helping you to build honeydew lists and doing wayfinding within the store so that you're in and out more quickly, so that you're not double back and tracking back, so that you're minimizing the amount of time and contact you have with people in the store. So a lot of these things and these themes and these experiences that we're building really resonate from what we've heard and what we've seen from customer behavior. And as we say, this post-COVID world is going to look very much like the current COVID world, we think, for the next 3 to 5 years.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, look, I love those examples. I mean, for one thing, historically, one of the maybe fallacies we in digital and e-commerce have thought about is sort of that it's a separate thing from the store. There's stores and then there's e-commerce. But really what you're describing is digital sort of being embedded in a whole range of customer experiences, including in particular in the store experience. And really just, we almost should stop talking about store and e-commerce because digital just permeates across all the different touch points, and whether that's in the form of lockers or whether that's in the form of curbside pickup or whether that's in the form of maybe AR, VR experiences within the store, it's just much more of a kind of seamless interplay. And and the other thing I love about what you said is, you getting to the why behind what your customer is buying, which is they're looking for, the why is that they're looking for convenience and safety. The mechanisms you're putting in place are just a wide range of techniques to satisfy that underlying desire, to make it happen. So super cool. Well, I know we're at a couple of minutes, before the kind of end of this interview. So maybe I'll ask you this, which is sort of, if you were to think about, from a technology perspective, the implications of all the things you're doing, and related to Bloomreach, related to SAP, but maybe related to any technology vendor that you might be looking for, as you think about what you're looking for from a great partnership with a technology company to build towards your vision, what are the most important attributes, that you'd be looking for?
So I think first and foremost, we're looking for industry leaders, and that to really be willing to partner with us, to definitely come with already the top tier technology within their field.
Yep.
I think more importantly, to be willing to partner with us. Because what we want to do, and you've described it very well, is move into a non-separation world, a really what we call interconnected retail, where from a customer perspective, they don't see a digital world, they don't see a physical world, they just see Canadian Tire.
Yeah.
And so we want to have leading partners come with us on this journey as we figure out together what are the things that the customers need now and will need in the next couple of years. Because we don't have all the answers. I think the best way for us to understand this is to fail quickly, learn, iterate, test a lot, and have that flexibility, and not necessarily do big mammoth releases anymore,
Yeah.
but do this incrementality, do this prototyping. Let's pick a handful of stores and go in and see what works, what doesn't work, and are we on the right track? And so it is hard when you find these upper right quadrant partners. They like the roadmap because the roadmap allows them to be repeatable.
Right.
But I think one of the important things is for these partners and that to realize that they probably need a half dozen or so core companies, and they can be of different sizes, that will challenge them, that
Absolutely.
will actually allow them to create a roadmap that will be sustainable for them in the future. Because just being in the upper right quadrant right now doesn't guarantee you that position in 3 to 5 years from now.
No question. And you know, the technology industry is littered with technologies that started well, but then, you know, got taken over by people who invented plans in dark rooms and never listened to the market. So really appreciate you reinforcing that. Well, this is great, Shawn. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this last 20 minutes. I've really enjoyed it and look forward to the partnership.
No, I do as well. And thank you, Raj, for reaching out and continuing to be a great partner with Canadian Tire. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Shawn.